Oh, very well. Thank you. All right. We are the LEAP4SME consortium, which is a consortium made up of 9 national energy agencies from the countries of Austria, Croatia, Greece, Italy, Malta, Poland, Portugal, Slovakia, United Kingdom, and our communication partner, Revolve. We built together this consortium funded by the Horizon 2020 2020 initiative to reach a bunch of main goals. First one is mapping and understanding the complex context of national and local support to SMEs, contribute through the LEAP4SME research, analysis, and stakeholders' involvement to help the institutions finding some solutions to fill this gap of data. We will prepare some knowledge sharing for stakeholders and also for national authorities. This all with the ultimate goal of proposing effective and realistic solutions to policymakers and policy implementers. This for policy schemes, cross-cutting policy solutions, also interacting the SMEs energy efficiency policy schemes with some other effective schemes, for example, under other energy efficiency directive, different articles. Please move to next slide, Josh. Today's agenda, we are here today to speak about this quite peculiar topic of energy efficiency and energy audits in small, medium-sized enterprises. I will make a brief introduction, even briefer after the initial issue. Then we will give the floor to Oronzo Dall'Oiso, project manager from CINEA, from the European Commission, the executive agency for infrastructure, energy and environment of the European Commission. And then we will move to the private sector, specifically with 3 European level associations, one regarding chemistry, where we have Nicola Rega in representation of CEFIC. Then we will move to the copper sector with Didier Deboucher from the Copper Institute and Copper Alliance, and then we will give the floor to Roberto Ariotti, which is here on behalf of the European Foundry Association and the Italian National Foundry Association. This will give us also the opportunity to introduce, from the end of Mr. Ariotti's speech, we will move to Marcello Salvio's intervention. We will then target on a case study of Italy. Italy approached Article 8 not only in terms of obligation for large enterprises, but also in terms of obligation for energy-intensive SMEs under specific conditions. And below this extension of the obligation, we got a few thousands of energy audits from energy-intensive SMEs. Please go on, Josh. From LEAP4SME, what we have done by now and what we are going to do sooner. First of all, we checked what was available and what was needed to be found in terms of data availability on the SME sector at national and European levels. We found a good availability of economic-related data, number of enterprises and employees, plus interesting results from the European Commission, SAFE, and the European investment banks. Interesting means that they cover a lot of SMEs in terms of sampling, namely more than 10,000 of SMEs, because being 23 million the SMEs in Europe, any other attempt of sampling, it is quite and rather hard. We found a lack of energy-related data on small, medium-sized enterprises with insufficient data situation for properly planning energy efficiency policies. And we found, we can see on the right of the screen, a strong need for KPIs to implement policies and support the policies process development. On the right of the screen, we see a lot of green above, which means referred to all enterprises when we go to KPIs. When we go below to referred only to SMEs KPIs, the color red increases quite a lot. Namely, there is a lot to do in terms of KPIs for SMEs. Please go on, Josh. Energy efficiency policies in small, medium-sized enterprises and barriers. We analyze it with the Austrian Energy Agency and the Energy Saving Trust and the participation of all agencies, about 170 policies, 173 to be right, covering the 9 targeted countries. We classified those, we got into these policies to get useful insights for the next phase of assessment and planning of existing policies with new policies. Outcomes and preliminary recommendations we got from this analysis to further evaluate a combined approach of mixed of different instruments, awareness raising, communication of existing policy instruments for SMEs, simplification of the application processes, eventually assess the effectiveness of focused obligations for SMEs to go for energy audits, and move to sector-specific policy instruments, assessment of tailor-made approaches at the intersection of firms, sites, and specific aspects of energy climate investments, meaning we need to go a little stronger on specific sectors and or on customized approach for sub-specific sectors to make these policies effective. When we go to barriers for SMEs, on the right we have a little snapshot of how the national energy agencies, through the voice also of their presidents and directors, see this world of barriers for SMEs. This is quite an interesting point of view, which will be matched later in the project, also with the stakeholders interview from the market. The preliminary recommendations we feel to give is to create linkages between audits and wider support programs for investments, strong standards for auditors and their outputs, and create linkages between audits and wider support programs. Please go on, Josh. What are the next close steps we are going to do quite soon, autumn 2021 and spring 2022? The first step is a survey for organizations. We need to assess the energy audits and energy efficiency policy barriers and needs in SMEs. And if you are an organization, not an SME, please feel free to click on the link below and then help us with 15 minutes of your time in better assessing what's happening in the world outside national authorities and national energy agencies. Survey for enterprises. If you are an SME or work for an SME, also help us in better assessing what are your issues, your needs, and whatever you like to share with us in terms of contributions. We will read all that will be sent to us, and then of course we'll make our choices and assessments. Then a little bit later in 2022, we will collect proposals, contributions, and ideas from the LEAP4SME International Observatory, plus national observatories and trainings with the support of the CRES for Working Package 5. So I basically explained what we are doing in LEAP4SME. Please stay in touch if you wish, and then we can now move to the first speaker of today, to Nicola Rega. Please, Nicola, you can directly take the floor from the European Chemical Industrial Council, which will focus on energy efficiency and energy audits in SMEs in the chemical industry. Thanks, Nicola.
Thank you, Enrico, and good afternoon to everybody. I hope you can properly see my screen.
Yes.
Okay. So thanks from my side. I will give you a perspective from the chemical industry. And for ones that are not familiar with our industry, just a few slides introducing who we are and what we are doing also in terms of energy efficiency. So first of all, the European chemical industry is the second largest producer of chemicals in the world. The first is China. And if you see the numbers, if you combine all North America and Europe together, which are the second and third, China is still outweighing us. So I think it's an industry which is operating in an extremely competitive environment, but we are, I would say, defending ourselves quite well. It's an industry which generates more than 500 billion euros in sales. We have a trade surplus, so we managed to provide to have our exports which are outweighing our imports. We are one of the largest investors in manufacturing in Europe. We also can rely on a very strong network of more than 5,000 chemical industries in our industry. We provide value added for our industry, not only, but also to the whole economy, and we are a key block in the value chain. Now, we are an energy-intensive industry, and for us, in energy efficiency, it's at the core of our activities, and that's also, you can see from the graphs that we've been reducing our energy intensity while in the meantime also increasing our production. So we've been up to a point decoupling energy consumption from growth. Clearly looking forward, we'll have challenges when it comes to further decarbonization that would require solutions, would require most likely an increase in energy demand. But this nevertheless, that doesn't mean that we would not improve anymore our energy efficiency performance. Now, looking at the picture or the scenario when it comes to SMEs in our industry, I think this graphic is quite representative, I would say. Different colors. It's easier to start looking at the number of enterprises. The yellow bar, which is the large enterprises, that means that it's easier to calculate that 97% of our companies are SMEs, although that doesn't necessarily translate into share in sales. So 3% of our industry large companies make up for 70% of the market. So that means that 97% makes up for about 30% of the market. Nevertheless, I think it's an important component of our industry. It's really the backbone, showing how diversified are our value chains. But also what this picture shows even more predominantly is the role of micro enterprises, the one below 10 employees, which is about 70% of our companies. So I think these are two elements that needs to be considered, like 97% of companies are SMEs and 70% are actually micro SMEs. If you combine also with small enterprise, so with less than 50 people, we really are almost at 80% of the companies. So it's important, and that's why we've been always looking at how do we approach energy efficiency in a sector which is extremely diversified, with different energy sources, different energy intensities, different energy management styles, which reflects a bit also the culture in which companies are operating. We have been looking at options to provide support to our companies to share know-how, to make available information to companies, and to diffuse best practices. And in this respect, I'd like to mention two projects that we've been carrying out over the past decade or so, and they've been both actually co-financed by the Commission. One is the Care Plus project, the other one is the SPICE-3 project. The Care Plus project, which ran between 2009 and 2011, it was really aiming at it was the first project we were doing for SMEs, and it was really support them in providing information, to disseminate available information, to try to also to explain what is the energy management system, to demonstrate that the value of energy management systems, and overall to improve, to demonstrate how these projects lead to improvements in SMEs performance. So what the project was realizing, were creating best practice manuals to help companies understanding a bit better that others were doing it already. Also develop tools for self-auditing, and also in the field of assistance, trying to find ways of provide some support to industries. This project was followed up by a second project, SPICE-3, where building on the previous experience, we've been also working in the direction of creating an online platform, some sort of one-stop shop to get information. Also organizing workshops, so we could have help exchanging best practices, and then discuss also learning from larger companies how they approach the issues, and also to discuss with the energy experts in other organizations. Also, we have created on-site trainings where we were looking at site visits to SMEs, trying to explain and to give recommendations, practical recommendations. and also creating some moments of recognition. So creating awards and events, try to give visibility also to the ones that have been engaging in these activities. So I think we have been doing our fair share of activities. We have also been learning a lot from these projects. So in the next my 2 slides and final slides, which are unfortunately a bit more dense in text and poor in graphics, but I hope you will appreciate also the content of these slides, which are quite relevant for us. Well, first of all, we noticed that usually there was a 10 to 20% energy efficiency improvement potentials in many SMEs that had never had any energy audits in the past. So the ones that were doing for the first time, you could really see immediate benefits when it comes to potentials available. The concept of energy efficiency, actually, it's in theory is simple, is clearly defined, but then when it goes down to definition, practical definitions, measurements, things get extremely complex, require often a case-by-case consideration, and it's also difficult to extrapolate from one case to apply to the other one. Also, something which is quite peculiar of the chemical industry is that in our case, the energy vectors are also feedstock. So it is difficult to just replace one energy vector without having to look at what is the impact on the final chemical reaction and also on the final characteristics of the product. Then these energy audits require time and qualified human resources, and a project it takes quite some time to understand in addressing what are the issues and how to find solutions. Is not just a matter of replacing one old equipment with a new one. It's really about looking at overall system approach and what are the implications if you start modifying part of the installations, what are the side effects somewhere else. Also, when it comes to energy efficiency improvements as a matter of projects, also we need to see how this end up into economic efficiencies. And that's because it's a matter of and it was expressed in the following point to liaison, I think quite well, is that it's a matter of how is this project going to be financed. How is this project competing with other projects, other priorities, particularly the ones in the core business, and also how is this, how are the economics ultimately making sense when you only have, let's say, €1 to spend, where are you going to spend it? So this is a bit of some general issues that I think they probably apply to not only SMEs, but more general topics across different size companies. But then when it comes to specifically on SMEs, there are some issues that probably they've been already discussed or addressed by Enrico in the first slides, but just to go back at those ones. So there is, first of all, an issue of lack of knowledge. Investments in the chemical industries are quite specific and require quite some precise technical competences. These type of competences are often difficult to find in external consultants because of the specificities of the sector. Then also there's an issue of that is particularly relevant for micro enterprises, the one that we saw before, like are accounting for 70% of our companies. And that is that the life of the company really rotates around the founder's life. It is often the case that you have a young entrepreneur that starts a company, it develops, but then the family doesn't want to pick up, and then the company is ultimately sold for whatever purpose. And so there is a moment when there is not really long-term vision. And that's when pretty much all sorts of discussion about energy efficiency, they become less relevant when someone has just the time horizon of personal retirement. There is also an issue with the administrative burden and the fact that in order to be able for these companies to deal with energy efficiency programs, they by themselves, they need to start allocating some human resources, and these human resources are not necessarily available. That means that they need to divert resources from certain activities to start looking at understanding how these programs are structured, what are the implications, what is required for them to interact with these programs. So this is a bit of a challenge there. It's also an issue with the limited staff resources as a headcounts, I would say. Also, the fact that we expect to have an energy manager in companies, well, this is not necessarily the case, particularly on SMEs. And when it goes even down to micro enterprises, we often see the example of a CEO that I mentioned here as a factotum, meaning the CEOs which covers lots of different functions from the top level to financing, to reporting, to also looking at energy. So it's not a person who has competence in doing everything, but it's someone who needs to do a bit of everything. And this also doesn't help in defining and addressing complex energy efficiency projects. Last but not least, on financial limitations. Often these companies don't have balance sheets which are robust enough for long-term investments. And also the return of investments. Again, it has to be comparable with what would be otherwise the return on investments in core business. And this is often difficult to reach for these SMEs in the absence of specific support measures. So it was a lot, but that's pretty much what I wanted to say. I'm happy to take up questions in a follow-up discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nicola. And yes, you also mentioned questions. If anyone has questions, please write those in the chat, and then we will make some single questions at the end to the speakers. We received also one question from Mr. Ciccarelli. Are the slides available? Sure, they will be available on the LEAP4SME website right after the meeting today or latest tomorrow morning. Thank you, Nicola, particularly for the last two slides where yeah, it's clear the effort to fit with this very specific concept, and they would be pretty useful to us. Also because even if you mentioned that we mentioned some of these barriers, we see these barriers from with a little bias, which is from the National Energy Agency's point of view. We analyze literature, we get in touch with stakeholders, but when these barriers come directly from stakeholders, from an European association, specifically in this phase, and they are quite similar to what we found, this is very useful. If they are not similar to what we found, we have no issue to modify those. But just to say that this is very, very valuable for us. So, okay, now we can move to the next speech. We have Didier Deboucher from the Copper Institute, Copper Alliance, from, of course, the copper sector. Thank you, Didier. The floor is yours.
Let me put up my slide. If you just can confirm that you see my slides.
Yes, I can confirm. It was only me having issues. All of you is perfect.
Okay. Thanks, Enrico. And indeed, well, first of all, thanks for having me and the European Copper Institute in this event. Indeed, we are the European chapter of the International Copper Association, which is a non-profit organization with the members representing many of the world's largest copper producers and smelters, refiners. And in that sense, we are maybe the odd one out in the industries that are represented today, because we are not directly representing a rich SME sector, because we mainly represent big mineries and extractors. But okay, the story will become clear later in my presentation. What we do is we support our members in market development and also in their contribution to UN Sustainable Development Goals, and one of them being, as you all know, taking urgent action to combat climate change and its impact. So This is also where European copper industry is dedicated to, a commitment that is based on two drivers. The first one, of course, by decarbonizing our own copper production, and secondly, by triggering and supporting substantial carbon reductions in the downstream sectors, such as in industry, buildings, and transport. But I'll come to that later. To start with the decarbonization of our own production, and I'm happy to see that our numbers are pretty aligned with the former speaker, Nicola, the chemical industry. So indeed, copper also has reduced their energy consumption per unit by 60% over the past decades. And I'm not going to read the measures implemented to achieve this. They are listed there, but they have to do with implementation of innovative and more energy efficient production technologies. But also very important with the recovery of residual heat, and maybe relevant to this webinar, the implementation of energy management systems. But then you will see that as of 2010, the energy intensity curve somewhat flattens, and this witnessed that our industry has best available techniques for energy efficiency in place, and there is little room for significant improvement left. So there are even reasons to assume that unit energy consumption might increase in the future due to the environmental regulation and enhanced circular economy. So again, here, this doesn't mean that we're not going to decarbonize any further, but innovation is key also for our industry, same as what we heard in the former speaker. Sorry. Well, as for innovation, these are some telling examples. I'm not going to read them because this would do not right to the members who are not listed here, but are also innovating. But there you see that indeed our members keep innovating and decarbonizing the production methods. But this all as a short introduction on decarbonizing the copper production is one pillar, but as I already mentioned, the biggest impact copper has in decarbonizing our economy is in the downstream sectors, such as in industry, buildings, and transport. And as you can see in this slide, copper is everywhere in the energy system, and that is thanks to some of the unique properties which makes it the metal of choice for instance, electrification. And I'm not going to name them all, but you see some examples here. Copper is a key component in electricity generation and distribution. In buildings, you will find copper in heat pumps, for instance, and solar panels, and of course the electrical installation, which is not that visible, but it is there. Also transport, decarbonization of transport has to do with mostly electrification. So yeah, I don't know if you're aware, but an electric passenger car contains 2 to 3 times more copper than a conventional vehicle. And in industry, when industry seeks for more energy efficiency, they often apply copper-intensive technologies such as energy-efficient motor systems, transformers, and electrical processing of materials, just to name a few. So to go short, if we want to decarbonize the economy, we will need copper. The good news is that the CO2 reduction downstream the value chain outweighs by far our own industry's carbon impact. We have these estimations, as you can see here. The European copper industry is representing about 0.25% of the overall European emissions. But if we would restrict adding copper to the system, then we would lose a potential of saving 75% of European emissions. And this 75% is based on this portfolio of copper-intensive technologies that we've identified under the Decarb Europe project, which you might have heard of a few years ago. So that is one of the reasons why the European copper industry, unless not being an SME-intensive industry, has a long history already in actively promoting and supporting energy efficiency in the wide industries. And one of the examples I can give is this survey that we conducted earlier this year, a survey that identified issues that SMEs are facing when implementing energy audits and energy management systems. And well, I'm very happy that our conclusions are pretty much, oh, sorry, I'm too fast here, are pretty much aligned with what previous speakers like Oronzo and Nicola have already said. So let me say, first conclusion is from our sample, only 16% of the companies had an energy management system in place, which is even not only linked to the ISO 50001. Another 36% report a systematic approach to energy efficiency, but this leaves close to half of the companies not implementing energy efficiency measures or only on an so there is clear room for improvement there. And then we ask in the survey, okay, what is the main resistance in your organization towards implementing energy management systems? And again, there I recognize many of what has been addressed by previous speakers. Too long payback periods perceived, too low benefit cost ratios, but also resource constraints, and the concerns regarding bureaucracies. So it clearly shows that SMEs need support, both in finance and in training and information. And so a further question in the survey was then, okay, what information and training is missing when implementing energy management systems? And you see the results there. I'm not going to read them all, but it is clear that case studies and best practices or methodologies and guidance on energy reviews and analyses are amongst the main needs in SME sectors for the implementation of energy management systems. So as a European copper industry, we have already this long-standing track record of activities to support industry and SMEs in particular to promote energy efficiency. And I would really encourage you to have a look at this, the first one that is mentioned there, this application note on the implementation of energy management, which is an application note that guides SMEs through the implementation of an energy management system, which is similar to the ISO 50001 standard, but in a more simplified and pragmatic way, tailored to the type and the size of SMEs. On the same website, you can also find this online help desk with frequently asked questions on the implementation of energy management practices. And over the past years, we also developed a good practice guide, which contains over 60 application notes on energy saving measures. Application notes meaning that they are more practical guidance than what you can often find on the internet, but are also lighter to read than much of those technical guides. And that is exactly, we try to target these how did you call that, Nicola, the CEO who had to perform all the tasks? Well, we hope to target those people who are not very into the technical details, but on the other hand need very practical guidance in implementation as well. And a fourth important campaign that is relevant for today is the one on motor replacement. We see from studies that motors in industry and also in tertiary buildings are used far beyond their expected lifetime. And the problem there is that this slows down the anticipated energy savings from eco-design regulation. So we are convinced that a dedicated motor innovation initiative could harvest an important contribution to the targets much earlier. And you see the savings opportunities listed there. Early estimations say that it's about 18 terawatt hours per year for motors. But if you then consider the broader system, it can even add up to 45 terawatt hours per year. These are kind of back on the envelope of calculations, but they really point out the big potential that is there. And one of the political instruments we're looking into to realize this potential is, of course, the Energy Efficiency Directive. So let me, to conclude my presentation, zoom in the presentation in our position, ECI's position on this Energy Efficiency Directive. And let me jump immediately to point 3, conscious of time. Of course, we welcome a lot of the provisions of the recast proposal, and yet we also think that there could be even a better focus on those economic sectors and application domains with a vast untapped cost-effective energy efficiency potential. And that is namely segment of the small and medium-sized companies, but also the heating and cooling sector, where we observe a vast untapped potential in the recovery of heat, residual heat from industry mainly, But also at systems level, the potential that goes often unnoticed is the fact that about 2% of all electricity generated is lost due to the improper cable sizing for heavily loaded circuits in indoor electrical installations. So we think there's still a lot to harvest. So to really conclude then my presentation here is we really think the quality of energy audits should be improved, the level of adoption of cost-effective recommendations from energy audits as well, but without making such implementation mandatory, because experience really shows that voluntary schemes in industry result in a higher willingness to invest, and also on a more continuous time horizon. So the longer term perspective is important here. So that's why we welcome the strengthened provisions also on promoting energy management systems. However, we think industry and especially SMEs should be supported in the implementation of these systems, and not just face another list of mandatory requirements. So, for instance, certification should not become a barrier for smaller companies for the uptake of energy management practices. So we think there's room for a simplified and pragmatic approach tailored to SMEs. So that's it. Thanks a lot. Also thanks to my colleagues who contributed to this presentation and whose name you can find on this slide. Again, the links I refer to are all available online, so I encourage you to go there and look for more details. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Didier, also for taking your positions about the Energy Efficiency Directive, which is now under revision. So very good. We stay in touch also about this at a later stage when it will start to be something more concrete, and we can talk about probably the last versions. So we can have your view again. So we can go now to the next speaker, which is Mr. Roberto Ariotti from the European Foundry Association and ASOFON. Thank you, Roberto, for being here, and we also know that it's a quite intense period in foundries, so it's very appreciated that you joined us today. The floor is yours, please.
Thank you for your kind invitation, and that I try to put the presentation on, and in the meantime maybe I go through a brief introduction of ASOFON, of foundry industry, CIF. Okay, here we are. Okay, from the beginning. We are not from the beginning. Okay, yes, CIF is, let's say, the mother association of the European National Association of Foundries. We all together employ some 300,000 people in roughly 6,000 companies. So you can easily recognize us as a group of SMEs mainly, but altogether the sales is around 50 billion euro, and we deliver to the market something like 17 million tons of castings. What are these castings? Casting are the structural components of a machine of any kind. Our industry created this structural component out of metal scrap that we collect from the market, and we, let me say, upcycle to make lightweight vehicles or a component to wind turbines, just to mention to end market. And we do it through a process which is very energy effective and efficient. But let's go to the key point. So yes, let me go through it. So we made a comparison recently between how the main European countries are handling the issue of introducing energy audits, and we have seen that only Italy has undergone energy audits, even to SMEs. Let me just put it down so I see better. So in Europe, generally speaking, enterprises that are not SMEs do not have energy management system or we have seen that in France, Germany, and Spain, there is quite an important voluntary certification. I think that I'll go directly to the Italian situation that I know a little better. You will have our slide to see the notes that we got from the Spanish, German, and French association. So focusing on Italy. In the application of the energy audits is mandatory also for SMEs. When SMEs are energy intensive company, that's quite a particular situation that we have in Italy. Due to this obligation, the voluntary certification according to the ISO 15001 is not so widespread. Again, Italy is in a very uncomfortable situation compared to our colleagues in Europe because the cost of electricity has always been very, very, very high. In our data, according to our data, is about 20% higher to the price that is paid in France and in Germany. But okay, now given the crazy cost of the energy as reached recently, this issue is absolutely the very high in the ranking of any CEO of our company. Then again, particularities of Italian foundries, it's the structure of the companies, because as typical from our industrial sector, there are lots of medium or small company compared especially to the situation that we normally see in Germany. So, due to these Italian peculiarities, ASSO Fund has carried out work of data collection and data processing to identify the energy benchmark and the areas in which the efficiency intervention were possible. This methodology can be found in a document named Guideline for Development of Energy Audit in the Foundry Sector, according to the Article 8 of the legislative decree. What we know from the energy audit, it was mentioned also in the previous talk, because each company is really different from the other. But the colleagues in our association have tried to create a matrix at a certain point, having one dimension with the melting system adopted in the foundry, and splitting them in foundry melting with a cupola furnaces, so using carbon, or electric furnaces or gas furnaces. And on the second dimension, having the molding system. So having two main categories, the company adopting the green molding for series production, or foundry adopting sand and resin molding for the production of single pieces or limited series. When the component is very big, normally we don't use automatic line, but we rely much more on hand molding with a resin bounded sand. And anyway, in all these, in all our companies, we have seen that the casting and molded phases account for roughly the 65% of the total consumption, while we have seen that in the auxiliary services to production, especially the production of compressed air and the extraction purification system, accounts for about 15% of the total consumption. The audit carried out during our service have shown a series of saving of electricity that we could identify. These savings correspond to the consumption of, you see, roughly 23,000 typical households. And it was quite interesting to see that, okay, we have found 226 potential measures. The investment that we could recognize has a value of almost 30 million euro with an interesting potential saving that you can see. I think that in all this data, the most interesting thing to say is that the average payback period in years is about 4.5 years. This number 5 years ago may have not seemed so interesting and so exciting. Now, if I read it back now with the present scenario of very low interest rates, it's very, 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 very interesting, and it is wise for management of the company to look back, put back our eyes on it because of the key importance that this issue has. So anyway, you see the matrix shows the number of intervention divided according to the length of the payback period, the investment, and the saving that we can bring home through this investment. And it has been really important. It's absolutely worth to be further analyzed and investigated. Really, in this period, price of gas, price of energy has reached such a crazy value that each kilowatt hour that we can save has a huge impact on our life and on our balance sheet. So I really thank you for the initiative, and I think that we have to focus a lot on all the benefit, especially coming to what I have listened at the beginning from a previous speaker when you said that for each euro that we save in energy, the complete benefit for the company is more or less 2.5 the value of saving directly given from energy. So you have the slides for going in detail. For the moment, I thank you for your attention, and I wish you all the best for your activity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It says we thank you, Mr. Riotti. Last slide is something very valuable, something like that. Numbers in a specific sector on savings, audits, paybacks is something we really look forward to plan and work on policy implementation, just to improve policies and to make them better from the operational point of view. So we will be in touch again also in the future, and also the should be a lot to say about also the payback period. It's a great sentence what you said a few years ago in Italy, but not only in Italy, that number was considered quite high. Now it may be considered different. We need to take this into account into policies, as well as we need to take into account also that somehow now the business plans go in parallel. Once there was the incentive included in the computation of the simple payback and other financial rates, now it's a little bit different. Sometimes there are two different business plans, one with incentives and another one conservative without incentives. Very well. So great, thank you again. And then we can go now with your hints from the Italian side to Marcello Savio, which heads our unit in ENEA of energy efficiency in the economic sectors. Namely, it's the unit that manages Article 8 in Italy, not only Article 8, but also Article 8. Marcello, okay, you can directly go on. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Enrico. Thank you very much for the presentation. And good morning to everybody. I'm Marcello Salvio. I'm from ENEA. ENEA is the National Agency for Energy Efficiency, and I work with Enrico and with other people in department in DUE is the Department of Energy Efficiency. The role of ENEA in the implementation of energy efficiency policy is very important because ENEA since 2014 coordinate all the energy audit obligation scheme. So we check the enterprise that carry out the energy audit, compliant with the legislative degree. We check also the quality of energy audit, but as we also are involved in the publication of specific guidelines for the production of the energy audit. We share with a lot of business association, for example, also ASSOFON, that is the association of Mr. Ariotti, and we have published in the years some specific guidelines also on the monitoring system. So in the last years, we are involved also we are also developed specific methodologies for energy analysis performance as function of sites and sites. As you very well know, the Energy Efficiency Directive 2012-27 established a common framework of measure for the promotion of energy efficiency in the European Union. And the energy audit is the main instrument that have enterprise to carry out, to achieve energy savings. Italy has transposed the Energy Efficiency Directive into national law by the legislative decree number 102 in 2014, recently uploaded in 2020 with the legislative decree number 73. And also in Italy, Article 8 is dedicated to the energy audit. But there is a big difference between Italy and the other European countries. As you know, in all European countries, Article 8 says that starting from December 2015, and then at least every 4 years, the large enterprise have carried out an energy audit. So in Italy, we have a peculiarity. Not only large enterprise have carried out an energy audit, but also energy intensive enterprise. And which is the difference between this kind of enterprise? As you know, large enterprise are all the enterprise that are not SMEs. And Italy, an organization, an enterprise is a large enterprise if as a number of employees more than 250, if have an annual budget over 43 million, and if has a turnover, an annual turnover more than 50 million. So this is the main category of enterprise that have to carry out an energy audit. But in Italy, we also another category, that is the energy intensive enterprise. The energy intensive enterprise are the ones that have a tax relief on the electric bill. And there is a public body in Italy, named Cassa per I Servizi Energetici ed Ambientali, that manages this system. In Italy, there is a high electricity cost, and so there is a policy that helps this energy intensive industry, this energy intensive enterprise in the purchase of electric bill. So this enterprise has an annual consumption more than 1 gigawatt hour, and they have a tax relief on part of the purchased energy. So which is the peculiarity? That a lot of energy intensive enterprise are SMEs. So in Italy also SMEs have to carry out an energy audit pursuant to the Energy Efficiency Directive. And this is the energy audit ecosystem at December 2019. December 2019 is the first deadline of the second compulsory energy audit obligation cycle, and you can find all this data in our energy efficiency annual report 2020 that you can find on our website on enea.it. What means that at December 2019 about 11,000 energy audits were sent to ENEA. and from about 16,000 energy enterprise. But the number very, very important is the third info data that you can find in this slide. About 2,000 enterprise that carry out an energy audit and send to ENEA this audit were SMEs. So it's a very important thing in our country. So the total energy consumption covered by all the energy audit is about 50 megaTOA. That is about 30% of gross inland consumption. So what means this? That in the support that ENEA give to Ministry of Economic Development, we say that a part of our support is related to SMEs, to small and medium enterprises. For us, it's very, very important also share the collaboration with the business associations, as I said before. And this is very important also where especially in the association where SMEs are the majority of these of the enterprises related to this sector. For example, in the cement sector, in the chemical sector, but also in iron sector, there are a lot of SMEs, and sharing and to collaborate with this business association is very important for us. So some numbers, some information, some data about SMEs. That is the focus of this presentation. As I said before, 2,000 SMEs carry out energy audit at December 2019, and they carry out about 3,000 energy audits. As you can see, the total majority of these SMEs are related to the manufacturing sector. So iron, glass, cement, waste incineration, the paper, these are energy intensive sector and are characterized by the presence of SMEs. So at the deadline 2019, about 50% of energy intensive enterprise that carry out energy audit were SMEs. In the map, you can find also the distribution of energy audit by the Italian region. As you can see, in the northern Italy, there is the majority of SMEs that carry out energy audit. A very important info is that over 2,000 energy audit carried out by SMEs have a consumption monitoring system. So in the total, for the total energy consumption covered by the energy audit carried out by SMEs, we know that at least 10 megaTOA are referred to SMEs consumption. So the 20% of the energy consumption of the total enterprise is related to energy consumption from SMEs. So over 50% of energy carriers is represented by electricity. So another important, another very useful analysis that ENEA carried out in this in 2020 and also this year is an energy efficiency analysis on the implemented and on the planned energy efficiency measure starting from the analysis of energy audit. And studying all the audit, we can see that the most implemented type of intervention as energy efficiency measure planned in the implemented, excuse me, in SMEs are these 4 categories. And the main category is the lighting. that is 25% of the total energy efficiency measure implemented in SMEs. Then we have also some specific interpretation on production lines. Then general measure, that is very important, that is the adoption of an energy management system compliant with ISO 15001, and also the implementation of a generic monitoring system is one of the implemented energy efficiency measures more implemented. And then last but not least, also the energy efficiency measure on the compressed air is are characterizing the SMEs. So what we can do, what we can say about this database? This database is very important for us and very useful for us because thanks to the analysis of energy audit, thanks to also the analysis of the spreadsheet that large enterprise and energy intensive enterprise have to upload on our website, and also thanks to the analysis of the report uploaded on our website, we can also analyze a lot of sectoral information. For example, we can develop methodologies to identify first level benchmark. We can also analyze the main distribution of energy of the energy vectors in the production side. For example, we can analyze where the energy is used, if it's used more than in the main activities, or if it is used in auxiliary service, in general service. And then we can try now also an energy performance improvement actions analysis. Now we are studying the implemented and the planned energy efficiency measure reporting in all energy audit, and we are also publish some specific guidelines, for example, for the cement sector, for the glass sector, for the foundry sector, in collaboration with ASSOFON, but all our publication are implemented in collaboration with business association. So you can find all these specific guidelines on our website. We always say that energy audit is not an obligation. Since 2014, as a national agency, we say that we repeat this phrase, but is mainly an opportunity for enterprise, for large enterprise, but also for medium enterprise, because in the previous presentation we can see that the lack of information, the lack of knowledge are mainly barriers for SMEs. Then I think that we think that energy audit is an useful instrument to meet this lack of information and to have some information in the enterprise. Thanks for your attention. I am available on the question time before, after this presentation, and Enrico, the stage is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcello. If any other question is coming, let us know through the chat. Meanwhile, I would like to also pose you 1-2 questions, you speakers, for a quick roundtable on some important points that have arisen today, but they are also quite needed for our future activities. If you wish to give us 1-2 barriers or key recommendations for spreading energy audits in industrial SMEs, and or any other comment on how policies and funding schemes can help in promoting energy audits and ENMS to implement energy efficiency measures. This can be general or in a specific sector. We can start, directly, if you don't mind, we can start from Oronzo, the beginning, Oronzo D'Aloisio. 2-3 minutes each, if you don't mind, and then we follow the list as we have done until now. Mr. Ariotti had to leave because of this particular period in Foundries. They are quite busy, and he says hello to everyone. So, Ronzo, if you have one, two various or key recommendations and or comments on how policies and funding schemes can help our work in promoting, developing, and implementing energy audits and energy efficiency policies for SMEs. Thank you.
Hi, thanks again, Enrico, for the floor. Well, I wouldn't, I would rather actually listen to stakeholders from, the private sector as to what they would suggest. So I presented the key barriers we already identified. From my end, I would be interested to know, for example, from colleagues working on energy intensive industries and SMEs, what they would prioritize. So let's say, we say the lack of time and knowledge sometimes for SMEs is an issue. Would they see as a possible solution that this is actually externalized? So basically that SMEs receive support from an external stakeholder? And if so, should the stakeholder be which type of stakeholder, for example? Should it be a consulting? Should it be in a chamber of commerce? Should it be the public sector? So should it be one-stop shops created for companies? And then in terms of funding and support, I think many countries, many member states do have support schemes in place. I would not forget to mention that the current ED already calls upon member states to have schemes in support for those who don't have an obligation, so SMEs. This could be capacity building, this could be financial incentives. Is there one incentive that, according to stakeholders, would clearly, not all incentive schemes can be created, the funding is limited. Is there one that would, according to the audience, best increase basically the support that SMEs need? Voila. Thanks.
Thank you, Ronzo. So I will leave the floor to Nicola, starting from CEFIC, if you want to give some hints to Ronzo's question, and you have a couple of points also from mine. Please, Nicola.
Yeah, thanks. Easy question to start with. I mean, certainly, if there were easy solutions, probably would have already found them. So I think it's really a matter of try to understand a bit from everybody's experience, what is working better, what is working not that well. And sometimes it's also not just about we found a project here or a system here that works. Let's move it from country A to country B, and it will work. It really needs to fit into the culture of the country in which the company is operating. To me, what is always quite important to stress is that it is easy to say, okay, let's make it compulsory, and then the job is done. I was showing also in my previous slides that often it's really a matter of headcounts, and it's not just enough to say, okay, we do it, and then who's going to do it, how are we going to do it. So pushing the problem downwards is not necessarily a solution. I think it's also a matter of realizing that often the approach to this energy efficiency programs comes with the way the national programs are being structured. We had many presentations today from Italy. I think it's no mystery that a lot of investments, for instance, in projects like cogeneration, could take place in industry precisely because it was a supportive system. I'm thinking about the white certificates, for instance, that has been extremely helpful in getting companies into the mindset of if I need to do something, what is out there. So I do it because I also have the support from the program, the way it's designed to actually do something. Without that support, probably they would have been faced with looking for the cheapest option on the market. And I think this is also a bit, probably we should try to put ourselves in our own mindset of if, for instance, we at home we have I don't know, the dishwasher or the washing machine that breaks down. You are in that emergency situation, in emergency mindset. Okay, you need to do something. You don't start surveying for the market, looking at an energy audit who comes to inspection your house. It's just a matter of you need to get things running because you have the whole pile of clothes that are just piling up in your house, and you have maybe kids which are dirty. And this is probably what we need to think also. If we wait for the last moment for the energy companies, the smaller, the SME to take action when there is an emergency, well, they will do whatever it takes to address that emergency. So if you want to get into the mindset of how can we stimulate energy efficiency programs, then we need to have, first of all, the programs which is out there, which is flexible enough to address or to steer the solutions in a certain direction. So there with a sense of flexibility, because I guess we cannot have a program for every single company or for every single sector. We need to find to be pragmatic in allowing for these situations to happen, but also needs to be coupled with some assistance where it is make it easier for them already to start understanding what are the potentials out there. So by the time the decision is taken, then it can be addressed directly to where it matters the most. Easier said than done, but I think it's I think a basic step that we should try to address, and then how we're going to do it, it depends very much in the country in which you're operating.
Thanks, Nicola. I will go to the others from the copper industry, please. The floor is yours, Diedert.
Enrico, I think I can second much of what Nicola just mentioned. So I'm not going to repeat it, but indeed, I think there is, to respond to the question of is this support or this advice going to be given by external stakeholders as well? I think to respond to that question, I think it's indeed very important. There are some general aspects to raising awareness and to methodology and to guiding companies in how to tackle energy efficiency. And then that can perfectly link to their really specific businesses. So I think indeed external advice is very, very valuable. And I think at the copper industry, we might have proven that in the past, because as I said, we don't have SMEs in our own membership, but we are developing programs sector-wide to support industries and SMEs in energy efficiency uptake. So I think it's clearly that it's possible. Maybe to give one example of one of these general approaches is about motor systems. If I talk, or when I talk to energy auditors here in Belgium, I sometimes ask, do you consider energy motors, the energy consumptions of motor systems? Sorry, when you conduct an audit, and they are even seldomly just looking into it, because they think, well, yeah, replacing the motor, that will take time, that will need a production shutdown, so we're even not going to consider it. So just the fact that including motor systems in your energy plan for an audit is something that is not general practice at the moment. So I think these are things that can really be fed in from external viewpoints. And there was on the second question, what measures could then easily support? Where should it come from, and then what kind of financial support is needed? Another thing that struck me when I was talking to energy auditors recently here in Belgium is one of them said, once I have told a plant to install a consumption meter, the next week they want another one, and a month later they want 5 other ones. So just giving insight in energy consumption is very important, and that kind of raises the awareness in its own right. So I think stimulating and supporting energy monitoring at SME level, and maybe developing supportive programs for energy measurements at plant level is an important one, I guess.
Thank you very much, Diedert. We've also some examples from Austria, Petra, which mentions that the Austrian Climative program tackles most of the points that Nicola and also now Diedert mentioned. Good practices, tools, trainings, awareness raising, procurement specifications, etc. Could be improved with regular network meetings. Thank you, Petra. If you want to add something more, just write a couple of rows and the floor will be yours. So thanks for this advice. And okay, I would also ask just Marcello a final question about is from the public sector, but how do you see this collaborating from the public sector with the private sector, namely industrial business associations as multipliers? It's hard to get in touch with single SMEs or energy intensive SMEs, whatever, but it's quite good when this work is made together with their representations in business associations. Marcello, we have some experience about this. If you want to add something, you are welcome. And this is most of it from Italy. Of course, Marcello is in the Italian Energy Agency, but what you see today, we are taking inside for Italy. In the future, meetings will be taken on the table for all of the LEAP4SME countries that we have, namely 9 European countries, to merge and to compare what is going on, as also Petra mentions. Thank you, Marcello. If you want to add something, please.
Okay, yes, yeah. Thank you, Enrico. Thank you for the question. So I think that the collaboration with the business association has been a key element for the implementation of energy efficiency in the enterprise. Since 2014, we organized as national agency specific sectoral technical tables with all the sectoral business associations, starting from ASSOFON, but with association from of iron, glass, paper, waste incineration, and I think that sharing the discussion with the business association is very useful to identify the mainly barriers that are in the sector. All sectors, all economic sectors are different between them. Not the approach is different sector by sector, and doesn't exist only one approach on the energy efficiency issue. We think, and the collaboration with the association is very, very important. For example, in Italy, we have also organized the monitoring guidelines, for example, for each sector. Not all sectors have the same monitoring approach, but each sector has an approach, and this is very important because thanks to this continuous collaboration, we can identify the barriers, and we try to find a solution to these barriers. So I think that is an important key. And I think that in all European countries, not only the consortium, the LEAP4SME consortium, but also for the other country, I think that this could be a useful instrument to find and to develop some instruments for these barriers, to lock these barriers.
Thank you, Marcello. So very well, we are approaching the end of this meeting. Sorry, we have 1 hour and a half available. Now we went 5 minutes above because we had this little issue at the beginning. If anyone else would like to add anything else, we are here, or even better, it would be great if you can fill the survey and share your views with us. They will be all read and taken into account. So, if there is nothing else, I don't think so. I would like just to thank you very much and for the participation to the panelists and particularly to all the colleagues that got into this quite interesting for us session. And looking forward to next LEAP4SME meetings, and feel free to be in touch if you wish, together with us, writing directly to us or through our website. Okay. Have a nice day, everyone, and the presentations will be online today afternoon or latest tomorrow.
Thank you, Enrico.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Have a nice
Bye-bye.
day. Bye.
Have a nice day.
Thanks again.